Well, folks, welcome to the Noble Man Podcast, and I am thrilled that we have Pastor Josh Dickens back with us again. He was with us a few weeks ago, and I just love the fact that here's this young pastor I got to meet a few years ago. He's back at his home church, Olive Baptist Church in Pensacola, Florida, and one of his assignments there as a pastor on staff is leading men's ministry. And so we're going to get an update from him. We're going to have a great conversation about what he's learning, what the Lord is doing in him and through him. And so it's going to be a great time. Josh, welcome back to the Noble Man Podcast.
Hey, thank you so much. It's good to be back.
Well, I appreciate it. And I did not realize, you and I were just talking about this, but did not realize that you and your wife are expecting your first child in
Yes.
5 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that.
In just right under 5 weeks. So not
Okay.
counting down or anything, but yeah.
That's awesome. And we were also talking about how hot it is in Pensacola. And so it's just, it's a tough time to be this far along in a pregnancy. So how are you caring for your wife and helping her to stay cool and comfortable? That's a great men's ministry question right there.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to do everything that I can. You feel, especially this is our first child too. So I just constantly ask, how can I help? What do you need? So it's been a learning experience for me and serving more and I don't know. I hope I'm doing well, but it's a lot of fun. We're both looking forward to it. The nursery's ready, and so she's handled it so well. I'm so proud of her. But
it's a time of great joy and anticipation, isn't it?
it is, yeah.
Yeah, and you said that in your men's Bible study that you lead weekly, you've got a number of guys that are asking you routinely every week, what's the status, how things are going, and all of that. What kinds of advice have those men given you about being a dad? Have they offered up any helpful or unhelpful advice that along the way here?
So the number one question I get is, "Are you ready?" And I feel like that's a catch-22 because if you say yes, there's no way they're ever going to respect that. So,
right.
And then if I say no, then they start to share. So they just constantly said, "Man, you are the first and foremost serving your wife." And so whatever she needs, you want to be there for her. And then whether that's in the labor and delivery room, whether that's at home, you can change an extra diaper, whatever that is, try to take the burden off of her as much as possible. And so that's been the best advice I've gotten.
That's awesome.
From these guys.
Now,
yeah.
I'm going to ask you, I think you guys are close to your parents. Is that correct? But her parents are some distance away.
Yeah, so her parents, we're in Pensacola, Florida, and her parents both live in Georgia, the Atlanta area. And so my parents are here in town, and so they'll be here. Her parents will come down for about 2 weeks and get to be with us, which would be great. And and then after that, I'll go back to work, or my mother-in-law will go back, and we'll have to figure out a new normal. But yeah.
There you go, figuring it out. Well, I personally, our oldest son and his wife are the only ones who have grandkids for us now. And people ask me about being a grandfather. And I tell them that my favorite part of being a grandfather is continuing to watch my son. And so I love to watch my son be a dad. And so I know you're going to be a great dad, and it's going to be fun to watch that. It's a whole new world that brings challenge and wonder all at the same time. So we'll be looking forward to an update on that as it comes along. So
alrighty, we'll do.
Good fun. Well, listen, I've several of you who listen to the podcast have told us that you enjoyed the conversation previously with Josh, and some of you went out because he mentioned the book Pastoring Men by Patrick Morley. You went out and bought that book. So we're going to have a conversation about some of the lessons learned from Pastoring Men by Patrick Morley. But Josh has also got some new initiatives going on with men there at Olive, so I want to hear about those and want to hear about his interactions with his senior pastor and how he's communicating with the senior pastor of the church about what he's learning about men and how to apply some of those lessons. So, Josh, let me just turn it over to you and let you give us an update on what kind of movement you see there at Olive, and how that's being received. What kind of momentum are you feeling building there?
Yeah, so it's been an exciting, really last month for the men of our church. So we've transitioned and into a full throttle, wrapping up the spring semester, and so for us that, especially for the men's ministry, that looks like the weekly Bible study happens on Wednesday nights. That's shifting. We're not shutting it down. It's just shifting. We're not doing table host and discussion questions at the end of each kind of Bible share time. Bringing in various leaders throughout the church throughout the summer that will just do kind of topical topics each week. Just because the rhythm of our church life, we have VBS and camp, and the 4th of July comes in there. So it's all, and vacations for everybody. So everybody's hit or miss. And so to do a series or try to require anything more from your volunteers is just asking a lot. And so we've rounded out, we celebrated the end of the semester. And really stabilized at about 50 guys a week, 40, 50 guys coming for that weekly Bible study.
Hey, let me jump in. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's part of what I do. I just want to affirm and reinforce what you just shared, because, guys, what Josh is talking about is the fact that with the summer being so volatile, that's not when you want to do something that is progressive Bible study. Man, it is so wise in the summertime to do topical stuff. Let every week, continue to do what you can, but don't put a lot of pressure on guys to show up consistently, because the summer is just hard for that. And so if they're in town, you want them there. But man, I think about doing a series through the Psalms, or some topics that, questions that men wrestle with, or have just various topics that guys could relate to, but not something that is sequentially progressive, because if a guy misses something, he feels like he can't come back. And what you want to do is have each week or each session be a standalone topic. And that's exactly what you guys are doing for the summer. Makes a huge amount of sense. So appreciate your leadership with that, Josh.
Yeah, Patrick, and even in the Pastoring Men book, Patrick Morley says, you don't surrender the summer. We're not going to surrender it. But at the same time, men's ministry is done in seasons and sprints. And so we were trying to think through, okay, what can we do? And then something that I think kind of spans across all churches, but really has just hit a nerve with our men recently, has just been being around multi-generational tables.
Yes.
And so that has been something that we're really trying to lean into. So all of the teachers that have been selected to come in and teach throughout, we call it summer sessions. For one of these summer sessions, they're all different multi-generational backgrounds. And so that's very purposeful. There are various leaders throughout the church that typically are serving. So they're not in there on a Wednesday night. And so it's given them an opportunity to be with the men. And so that's the summer portion that we just kicked off actually last night. And so that was excellent. As far as monthly, we do a first Tuesday men's breakfast. So that takes place in our church foyer, and that has just it's been really, really incredible. We've kind of cultivated that to be a little bit much more intentional and really, really strategic. And so this past Tuesday was the first Tuesday breakfast, and we've just seen a steady climb in attendance, which is always encouraging. But it's not just the attendance that is most encouraging. Once again, it's that multi-generational table. It's the church leaders that are buying in. We have deacons at our church. The deacons are completely bought in. The senior pastors bought in. The young college and young adults are bought in. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful time where that Tuesday is really becoming the one opportunity every month where all men, no matter where you serve, no matter what campus you attend, no matter what takes place, you can come to First Tuesday. And so...
all right, I'm going to interrupt you again, because part of what I hear from that is the Wednesday night session, you're having speakers come in who are serving sometimes on Wednesday night, so they can't participate in that. So this Tuesday morning, you specifically choose that. There is no other conflict for men at the church. So this gives the opportunity for every guy to participate because it's not going on while anything else is going on, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's comes exactly from, I mean, I just always feel like
Right.
I'm quoting him ad nauseum, but Patrick Morley, no man left behind.
Yeah.
And so we want to have a men's ministry that's not reaching a Bible study. Our men's ministry is
Right.
not a Bible study. Our men's ministry is for every man that goes to Olive Baptist Church. And we're even praying, God, would you give us a vision to reach all the men of our city? And so with that being said, we want to, of course, study the Bible, have times of intense, deep discipleship, provide D group opportunities, provide outreach. All these things are wonderful. But do we have something where we can say every man can be impacted here? Every man. And so that's
awesome.
That's what First Tuesday is becoming. And we're just so excited. And that format's just, it's an hour, but we try to jam pack that hour from 6:30 to 7:30. I tell internally, I say we're releasing at 7:25. So it's 55 minutes, and we've got that scheduled where we want to make that the most impactful hour of a man's month.
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned that your senior pastor is involved in that and supportive. Does he speak some months, or what is the program like for this First Tuesday men's breakfast?
Yeah, so every month, either Pastor Ted will speak, the associate will speak, or I will speak. And so we just rotate 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then whoever is not speaking, we take turns doing the intro and announcements, and then, of course, the dismissal. And at the dismissal, this is something really important that I think we often miss when we do stuff like this.
Sure.
Our dismissal is not just a simple prayer. We've taken that message. This past week, we had cards at the table already made up with the 3 questions of how they're going to apply the message. They're taking these questions home. They're filling that out. They're bringing these back next month. So we're given follow-up for what to do as they leave the place. So
that is huge.
That dismissal time is really our application time.
Right.
And we're beginning to explore all the things that could mean moving forward. Does it become a challenge every month? Is this an outreach opportunity? So we're starting to just strategically think, man, if we're going to preach and teach and give them an action step on the way out the door for the following month, what can we do with this? And so that's
Yeah, I talk frequently about we have to help men think about what is their right next step. So it sounds like you are priming the pump for that. You are not leaving them there wondering, what do I do with this? You're guiding them. And I call that follow through too. I mean, I think about what it takes. I think you were a baseball player, and so if you're going to hit a long ball, you've got to keep the ball on the bat as long as possible as it is riding through. And so if you can keep men connected and thinking about this longer, and take the right next step, then that's a huge move in the right direction. That's awesome.
Yeah,
so glad to hear that.
And it's so hard because, I mean, I'm a preacher at heart. And that means I love full rooms. I love nothing more than to preach to a full room. But that's just not the touchdown. That's not, and so shifting the mind to say, man, we've got a full room here of guys. What are you doing with them? And if you're just going to speak for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, your sermon's going to end, and people will pat themselves on the back, and man, God's word is powerful. It does a work that even we don't think we'll know until the other side of eternity. But also, ministry takes place outside the walls of the church, and in these guys' workplaces and in these guys' homes, and they're going places that we'll never know. And so, me as a pastor, I'm here to equip them to go serve on that side of the fence, on the trenches of their workplace and their homes and their neighborhoods as they play. And so, and if we can give them some tools to make that ministry centered, and we're going to see, I mean, that rooms will fill themselves. But if it's just a full room, that's not a touchdown.
Well, one of the terms I've used over the years is kitchen table theology. And so if we send a guy out after an experience of teaching, whether it's sermon or small group or whatever, and he can't go home and reproduce that in some way or some form in a conversation with his family at the kitchen table, then we're really not moving the needle. And so if we can give him a tool to take it, especially to his kitchen table, because I'm just convinced that if a man is not going to talk about the Lord's work in his life with his family at the kitchen table, the likelihood that he's going to have that conversation with someone at work or a stranger goes way down. And so we want guys to practice evangelism and discipleship in their own homes to help them. I mean, that's biblical, and then it gives them the confidence to take it somewhere else, gives them a lot of stories to tell about the Lord's work in and through them.
Yeah, well, I love what you're saying here, because this is exactly where we've gone philosophically as a men's ministry.
Right.
So we look at Genesis 2, and we say, this is the creation mandate for both men and women. But since we have men in the room, we're talking in the context of men. We see that God gives every man a place to cultivate, to keep. He gives every man a person, and he gives every man a purpose. And so we've just translated that to the three pillars: is you build your home, you make disciples, you reach a city. And so those are our three pillars. We were made to do this. Every man was made for just that: building a home, making disciples, reaching a city. And it goes in that order as well. If you're not building your home, you cannot reproduce in the church. And if you're not reproducing in the church, you'll have no citywide impact. And so,
absolutely, concentric circles of influence. So, all right. So it sounds like that I think it's Pastor Ted, correct? Yes. Is on board with some of what you've brought to him. And so, tell me about your conversations with him and how you've shared what you feel the Lord guiding you to do, and his reception to that. Maybe some questions that he's asked, or how has that been?
So, I mean, it's been 100% support from him to me. And so that's been so wonderful. And something that he does with he's just almost all of our staff. He has 100% support for. And so that's been really, really encouraging, particularly with the men, though. He's always had a burden for men. And so we're not trying to convince him that this is a need. And so moves the ball down the field so far just in that. And so something else that Patrick Morley talks about: if you're going to have a successful men's ministry to church, you just got to get the lead pastor on board. Without the lead pastor being on board, it's just not going to. You got to have a key leader that's not the lead pastor, but whether that's a staff, whether that's a layman, whatever that's going to be, you got to have a face of the men's ministry, and then you got to have a leadership team of guys that have come around, and they're going to be the hands and feet and legs and do the X's and O's of everything. And so what's moved the needle for us fastest is, and pastors just, he didn't preach on Tuesday, but he did the intro. He prayed over the food. He was there. He's making jokes from stage, and then he's handed the microphone to the number two. And I think that even visually, it just unites us. It brings the men together. And I think a lot of pastors that maybe are listening to this right now, you just don't know how powerful it can be to just simply, and unifying for your church, to just simply hand the microphone and say, "Hey, I'm here to support you." It moved us so far forward. It's just incredibly powerful.
Well, I think that's Ephesians 4:12. That's equipping the saints for the work of the ministry. So part of what he is doing is equipping folks, and you're doing that as well. But it's 2 Timothy 2:2 in action. I mean, Paul doesn't say teach the faithful men and keep teaching the faithful men and keep teaching the faithful men, because the faithful men will never be able to teach for themselves. That's not what it says. It says teach the faithful men so that they will teach others also. And so when we're talking about multiplying ministry, you cannot do it all. And so for a guy who has as much visibility as your pastor does over the years, and I mean, it would be easy to get intoxicated with that and to want that, but for his desire to hand that off and empower some other folks is truly what multiplying ministry looks like, I think.
Yeah.
And so in your case, he is the lead pastor of a huge church that's handing that off to another pastor who's on staff. But for the rural church, this means raising up a godly man in the church or a godly team in the church of a few guys. They may not be on staff, but they still could be guys that you would equip to be part of what the Lord is doing in and through men. So this is completely scalable up and down if we learn how to replicate, multiply, hand off leadership opportunities. So is that consistent with what you see?
Oh, absolutely. And then I also think through the outreach component of it, not just the teaching discipleship component. So yesterday, Pastor Ted and I went and did a home visit with a guy. He's not a believer, kind of loosely connected to our church. And Pastor Ted's, like you say, it's just because he's so well known, he gets out of the car. The guy recognizes him, and so he rushes him into the house. And we spent about 30 minutes with him, got to know him. But because I'm there with him, now the guy wants to be a part of the men's ministry. And so it's just a huge connection there of, man, if I go do that alone, and he doesn't know me from Adam, no telling what happens. But because the senior pastor made a commitment there, just 30 minutes, I have that relational capital as well. And it's just so impactful.
So he has lent his credibility to you for just a brief period of time, and that has allowed you to move further in a relationship. It could have taken you multiple visits to develop the rapport that you now have because of his endorsement for being there. So, guys, I hope you're listening to that as well, because that's another great nugget of truth and encouragement. Well, let's jump ahead now. I could rattle off some things that I think about this book, Pastoring Men, and we'll give you a link to this. It's still available. It came out copyright 2009, so it's a little dated. It's 16 years old, but I think the wisdom and the truth from Patrick Morley here is fairly timeless in the church. And so, Josh, what jumped out at you as you read this book and kind of went into it thinking, okay, what can I learn here to apply to my situation at our church?
Well, what I love about this book the most is it's a strategic men's ministry book. And there's lots of church strategy books out there. Very, very few how to reach men strategy books. And, I can fill a library with all the problems that men face in the church and even good devotional material for men. But this gets down to the X's and O's. It just makes it an invaluable piece. And if you know what you're looking for, it becomes a page turner. What I like most is he begins the book. I think it's right there in the first chapter. He just comes right out and says, man, no matter how we got to the place that we are in the church with men falling out of the church or becoming effeminate or whatever, we have to disciple our way out of this.
That's right.
There is a time and place for examining the problem and recognizing where we went wrong and doing the hard underground work. But this is a book that begins to fly over that and say, all right, so we're actually going to have to move forward and we're going to roll our sleeves up and get to work now. And because we're going to have to get to work now, here's what to do moving forward. And I think that we've got to start thinking that way if we want to reach men. We're in the boat we're in. Wherever you find yourself, you're in the boat you're in the context you're in. That's not changing tomorrow. We're going to have to disciple our way out of this. And that can change things in a hurry. So, it's just the tone of it. I was immediately hooked. It was right there. It is. I'm looking at the quote right in the first chapter, and I knew I'm gonna love this.
Well, I just have to tell you that for you to say that a men's ministry strategy book became a page turner for you, there might be a bit of hyperbole there for the typical guy, but I find that to be true in my life in the way that I read these things, because I'm anxious to see men transformed by Christ. And if I can get some real help in doing that, man, I know the value of that. And so I get excited about these things as well. So, pastoring men is a page turner. I'm going to hold on to that quote for a little while myself.
And I think too, we all, if you're in ministry, you'll recognize this. We all fall on two sides of the spectrum. You either love a whiteboard and can solve every problem that's ever been created on a whiteboard with 3 cups of coffee, or you love your prayer closet and you just want to wait for the Spirit to move. And I know that's simplifying, but man, it's both and. It's strategy with the power of the Spirit. And so we've got to desperately beg God, move in our midst of our men of our churches, raise up godly men. Would you put fathers back in homes? Would you help us reach a city for Christ and raise up champions? But with no strategy, you're going to have to build a trellis for the vine to grow on. And so that's what this book begins to answer. I think anytime you begin to think about strategy, that really is a helpful way to think about it. Yeah.
Well, and I think another thing that I would add about this, and I want to be careful how I say this because it can come off as rather flippant, but I encounter a lot of folks who say, well, I'm praying about doing something, and I'm praying about doing something, and I'm mapping out a plan, and I'm working on a plan. Well, sooner or later, you need to get up off your knees, and you need to step away from the whiteboard, and you need to go flesh on flesh with some men and put what you are praying about and sketching out on the whiteboard into action with actual human beings. And so I think we can actually hide in the prayer closet and hide in the strategic thinking realm and never actually do the work of discipling another man. As a matter of fact, at the beginning of this book, one of the things that he does, he has this open letter to a layman from a pastor. And so he just, as a matter of fact, when Robert Lewis read this, he said to Patrick, that letter is valuable because of the way you presented that, because every pastor could identify with that whole thing. And it's interesting because one of the lines here, he said, and by the way, you will have more clout with me. This is a pastor speaking to a layman who may want to launch a men's ministry. By the way, you will have more clout with me if I see that you have a track record of actually ministering to men yourself.
Yes.
And so I have lots of guys, honestly, who come to me and say, Mike, my pastor won't get on board with anything. And I said, well, who are you discipling? What small group are you leading? Mm-hmm. Tell me about the men that you're investing in, because if you just are bombarding this guy with ideas that have no basis in experience, then I mean you're wasting your time, and he's not going to let you waste his. Yeah. So go to work, get to work, and start investing in another man.
General Patton said, a good plan violently executed today is better than the best plan violently executed later. And
there you go.
Yeah. Just get to work.
Yeah. So find a guy. So, okay, what else? So we have to disciple our way out of this. That is a valuable nugget for sure. Mm-hmm. And senior pastor needs to be involved. I will say this. I love the way that Pastor Ted is engaging this. I had another guy that worked with men's fraternity, and he said, if the men of the church, are willing to do a parade for men's ministry leadership, and they're willing to put something on, and the pastor will just come and be the grand marshal of the parade and wave at everyone as they go by, they just need his endorsement.
Yeah.
And so the support of the senior pastor is incredibly valuable. Doesn't have to do everything, but needs to support it, encourage it, acknowledge it, and be present in some form or fashion, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so huge when not just the senior pastor, I think.
Yeah.
But men just aren't felt like they're regulated to the back end, or even to just a singular program amongst many.
Right.
So we're beginning to think through the Father's Day is coming right around the corner. How can we not just say something from the platform or give away an honorary donut or whatever it is that we may be, but how can we make dads feel like the champions that they are? If we don't like fatherlessness, if we don't like it when dads leave the home, then we've got dads in the home, they're champions. And we're going to raise up, we want this day to make them feel like they're the biggest champions on the planet. And so how is we as a church can make them feel that way on that Sunday?
That's awesome.
I think it's way much more than an honorary nod. It's when the pastor gives his buy-in, he's saying, we as a church care about you men. When the pastor's there to high five, to shake hands at the door, he's saying, "You're valuable," and that's what makes the difference.
That's awesome. All right, so what else jumped out at you from the book Pastoring Men? Anything else that you would push out there?
So he begins to talk about the three things that men want, and he begins to parse out that there's three things men want, three things men need. But he says that it's a cause, a companion, a conviction, and so that's exactly where we talk about the creation mandate and build a home, make disciples, reach a city. We're just basically just riffing everything from him and saying, all right, let's just run this play. But that's exactly right in line with what we've done, speaking directly to men's needs. So
you're taking some of these ideas and bringing it into the DNA of your church.
Yes.
And so that's part of what I hope Noble Warriors will be known for. We don't want to come in and roll somebody over and say, hey, here's a program, do it this way all the time. Because whatever you do has to fit your context, your people, your DNA, your environment. And so you guys are able to take these basic truths and tenets and apply them in your context with your DNA there at Olive, and that is a huge move.
Yeah, and because he pretty much gives a 30,000-foot view early in the book, and then as you get to the later ends, he starts to talk more X's and O's of how he does things.
Sure.
And not everything towards the end, I think, can be copied in every context. That's just not.
Right.
Yeah, of course not. But there's so much that I think can be. And simple discipleship of seeing, and he gets down into the nitty gritty of, he has table facilitators for his weekly Bible study, and how often do you communicate with table facilitators, and how to train them, and how to help them plan the entirety of your semester. And those are things that I'm running for that weekly Bible study. But they're not actually doing anything on the Tuesday breakfast. And so it's not we can't just copy and paste, but there's so much that's so helpful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Anything else? We're going to run up on time here, but what else jumps out at you? Anything that you would push out here?
So he finishes on this quote. It's one of the last things I have underlined in the book. Successful churches have a vision to disciple all their men, not just those willing to join men's only activities. We cannot have an all-inclusive mindset. We have to have we cannot have an only exclusive mindset. It has to be all-inclusive mindset for our men in our church. I know we talked about that earlier, but man, I just can't stress that enough. We got to have a mindset that says all men in our church are always welcome to be invested in, even if they're not at the barbecue, the breakfast, the Bible study. We care about all men. So huge.
And I would just to give a little bit more, put some more meat on that skeleton. Man, I think about the security team. So the security team at most churches is predominantly men. There may be a few females on it, but you're for the most part talking about men. So how can you engage and disciple the security team at your church? Guys who do facilities work, guys who do service projects. I mean, these are not exclusively men's environments, but for the most part, they're going to be men. Maybe your disaster relief team. So you look for places where men are already gathering and say, okay, what can we do to make sure that these men are not just showing up to build a ramp or spread some mulch or take care of XYZ problem, but there is an opportunity for them to be discipled. And I would say, as a matter of fact, we'll link to a podcast that I did with Patrick Morley, because one of the parts of his story that I love and find to be deeply troubling is he talks about his dad taking his family to church, wanting to change the course of history for his family. And they went to the local church, and he said, I think about that magical moment when my dad put his hand on the door of the church and opened the door, and we went in as a family. And the church did not have a vision for his dad to become a disciple, but to become a worker. Yeah. And churches end up burning out and burning up men rather than building them up and discipling them And so we have to be careful that we're actually doing the Great Commission of making disciples and not doing some broken aspect of that or some broken rendition of it, and we're making workers in the church, because you can have people in the church that are spiritual babies because they've never learned what it means to walk with Jesus and to lead and love their families well. So there's a huge amount of opportunity here that is a win for the man. It's a win for his marriage, for his family, for the church, and for the community. Just those three pillars that you talked about, Josh. If you start with men, you can win in all of those categories.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Wow. Well, I love this. Any final things that you would add, man? I just enjoy these conversations.
No, it is always a pleasure, and thank you so much for having me.
All right, let me ask you this. Okay, so we'll try to get together again, maybe before baby's born. We'll see. But I know I mentioned several books. What other book have you read, or have you read any of those other men's strategy books that we might talk about next go-round?
I just finished Intentional Father.
Okay, the Jon Tyson book.
Yeah, so that would be, it's strategic for fathers, for sure.
Yeah.
And really, really good. I think I'll probably have to reread that many, many times as my son grows. And so I've read some others, The 5 Masculine Instincts. And then next up is a book, Why Men Hate Going to Church. And so that's one of the next ones that's coming up very, very shortly for me.
All right.
I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what.
But I know you've recommended it. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, we'll communicate and we'll decide what we're going to talk about next time as we keep working through what does this look like. And I'm just so proud of you, sir. I'm so thankful for what you're doing, the way you're leading with courage, and excited for this new chapter in your life, too, as a dad. It's going to be fun to hear how that's going along as a young pastor, husband, father. So it's great fun. Josh, thank you for your time. It's been a blessing for you to share it with us today. Thanks
so much, Mike.
All right. God bless you, folks. We'll look forward to catching you again on the next episode of the Noble Man Podcast, but we're super excited to have Josh Dickens with us. Check out show notes and some links that will be valuable for you. And if you've been intrigued with this page-turner of a men's ministry strategy book, check out Pastoring Men by Patrick Morley. God bless you, folks. Take care.